He serves in Malden, and his reading is entitled Claiming Our Names. He begins with a quote from Marsha P. Johnson. Marsha paid it no mind Johnson. And she said, "No pride for some of us without liberation for all of us." Otto writes, "Happy Pride!" It feels strange to say that. This moment is anything but happy because of an assault in this country on Black and brown bodies that has never really ended. The movement for Black lives and what's become known as Pride aren't the same movement, but they certainly aren't separate movements. There have always been Black queer people, no matter how much the white LGBTQ+ movement has pushed them to the fringes and tried to claim it for themselves. I claimed Otto as my name as an adult, a symbol of my identity as a transgender person. I claimed this name to help me think about who I was and how I was going to be in the world. But Otto wouldn't be my name unless a Black trans woman named Marsha P. Johnson and a Latina named Sylvia Rivera responded to police-induced violence at the Stonewall Inn in 1969. Two women of color who claimed those names for themselves. It wouldn't be my name if it weren't for Rita Hester, a Black trans woman who was murdered in 1998, and the vigil of her death that led to an annual reading of the names of the dead. Our beloved transgender siblings killed by anti-transgender violence, the overwhelming majority of whom are transgender women of color, who often aren't called by their right name in their obituaries or funerals. These aren't just names on a list. They are whole lives with hopes and dreams just as our own. We have to say their names. I wouldn't be able to live as I do without these ancestors who lived their queer lives unapologetically. My liberation is tied up in the liberation of Black and brown lives. These are my siblings being killed. Now is not the time to stay silent. And so I claim responsibility as a white person to speak up, to decenter myself, to accept the ways in which I've gone along with the insidious anti-Blackness in this country. I invite you to name for yourself what your commitments will be, because we need you to name them again and again. And these might be different depending on where you are in this struggle. For Black and brown folks, this might simply be surviving right now. Name them. Name these commitments and don't let them go. And a prayer that Otto wrote, remind us that our struggles for liberation are connected, from our ancestors to George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Tony McDade, to protesters, especially the Black and brown protesters lifting their voices. May we all remember how inextricably we are linked in this fight for justice and freedom. May it be so. Happy Pride Weekend, First Universalist. And the sun is out. Yay! This weekend, this celebration, this act of supporting LGBTQIA two-spirit people is a sacred act. We claim our names as Unitarian Universalists when we join in this celebration. And we join with the many queer, outcast, political, marginalized people who have historically made Pride a possibility and who are making Pride a reality in our present day. This morning, we celebrate the queer, those who will not be defined nor labeled, who will not be put in a box, nor held to standards of either or. To be queer is to embody both and to be expansive. To say this is who I am, and who I am is ever evolving, ever changing. Our culture is not exactly designed around folks who will not fit into boxes. People whose gender we may not be able to automatically assess upon appearance. To not be able to identify folks can bring about discomfort and anxiety on the part of people who are resistant to change and unlikely to want to shift their understanding of gender and sexuality. We as Unitarian Universalists celebrate change, right? Yeah, maybe, yeah. We know that our sense of the divine is ever changing. We know that truth is ever evolving as more and more and more is revealed. As hearts and minds grow, as time and learning reveal more and more and more, what we believe about the divine and about our world, what we believed when we were younger, is likely not what we believe now. We celebrate this change. We celebrate this ever-evolving, ever-changing nature of being human. There is a clear theological concept to help us put the celebration of change and expansiveness into context. Process theology, the belief that God, the divine, spirit, however you want to name it, is co-creating the world with us. That boxes around gender and sexuality that we thought existed are always changing. That human beings and our contexts are ever evolving. What one person does has an impact to those around them and an impact on the divine. There is no God above designing and authoring our experience. There is no concept of sin dictated from on high. We are co-authors in our existence and experience. And through our mutual connections, through our interdependence, we are co-creating the world. I especially celebrate this ever-changing nature of truth and what we know as a queer minister in this denomination. And as the queer minister that has been called to serve you these last almost 4 years. It was not too long ago that openly identifying as queer would mean I would not be able to get a job. Many of my queer Unitarian Universalist ancestors in ministry, upon discovering new pieces of their sexuality and or gender identity and or affectional orientation, were asked to quietly leave the church rather than to share the truth of who they were. The thinking was that their coming out would divide the church, that our coming out would divide the church. And so we could swallow who we were and keep our jobs, or we could leave quietly and find some other calling to follow, I guess. This morning I lift this up because I really want to invite us to mourn this loss, as we have truly missed out on some powerful leadership from the margins. And if we know any Unitarian Universalist leaders who were affected by this dynamic, let us claim their names and claim our commitments to creating a better world for LGBTQIA2 spirit people. We celebrate the moments of holy discomfort, where we think we know something about someone else, and we find that they know differently about themselves. We celebrate those times when we know we need to change, when our resistance has been worn down, and when we must learn a new thing, no matter how tiring that may sound right now. These moments are full of sacred learning about the nature of humanity, about our own capacity to expand and change our minds. Though we celebrate change, I find that sometimes we are here in a religious community to have our beliefs affirmed rather than challenged, or to even learn a new way of being in the world. Let us actually take space to celebrate the moments when we have been confronted with this dynamic inside ourselves. Let us especially celebrate the times when we have finally given in and changed our hearts and minds about something we felt so certain about before. And I just want to be really honest here. And I think that you all know this. But if this church is committed to honoring the inherent worth and dignity of every person, then a major holy act is using the pronouns people articulate to you that they want used. and embracing a stance of humility and curiosity in the face of that which we do not know. To honor one's inherent worth and dignity, you too are invited to utilize the holy resource and tool of Google to look up what you do not understand, to read about it, to learn more about what you are uncomfortable with from the comfort of your own home. I say this not to shame you for not knowing a thing. I say this out of love for us all. Out of love for those who are tired of educating and explaining. Out of love for those of us here who are still learning. I deeply want to keep learning with you, and I deeply want you to keep learning with me. And I hold that your learning can happen without a member of the LGBTQIA Two-Spirit community doing all of the work of explaining and educating. There are so many resources. You must have heard this on this day. Today we celebrate the outcast. Those who have been ostracized or shut out simply for being who they are. For many queer people, this has been a shared experience, though not for all. We celebrate those who have been told they do not fit in. In fact, I think you could say that Unitarian Universalism is generally an island of misfit toys. We celebrate those who society actively seeks to marginalize, those who have been seen and defined as less than human. In our celebration, we claim humanity for all, recognizing that our belief in love at the center of all things calls us to know all humanity as capable of love and loving. I recently took the time to watch a 6-part documentary called Pride, which is available on Hulu and the FX network. And as I watched this, I watched 6 decades of people who were shut out of mainstream society. The documentary series focuses on 6 decades, starting at the 1950s and coming to the present day. Transgender women who could not and still not find paid work outside of sex work. Queer men and women who were asked to live closeted at work or lose their jobs. People whose families chose to abandon them and had to make families of their own. Folks of all genders advocating for people dying of HIV and AIDS while the government stood idly by and complicitly silent. Those who had experienced violence because of the fears and anxieties and outright hatred of others, who were arrested for fighting back when attacked by people who sought to take their lives. Communities who still remain joyful amidst it all. Those who actively challenged our country to take seriously the personhood, humanity, and power of LGBTQIA Two-Spirit people. This morning we celebrate the outcast, of course. But we cannot celebrate the society that is drawing the lines and the boundaries about who is in and who is out, who can live safely, with access to competent health care, and with family support. When we were referring to access to who is in and who is out, we were talking about essential life forces being denied to human beings, the right to food, shelter, water, health care, the right to live one's life authentically. Rights which should be guaranteed to all of us. If sin exists, and if it is a useful theological concept to any of us here, I believe it is in the act of being out of right relationship with another and of actively seeking to take away someone else's livelihood in ways both small and large. It is especially egregious when done intentionally, but also still harmful when done unintentionally. So you know who was an outcast who criticized the imperial forces of their day and called out systems of empire to lift up love in the face of hatred and oppression? Any guesses? Jesus, yes, you got it right. Marcella Alpaus-Reed, queer theologian and Latina, reads the Christian scriptures through the lens of the gay bar and the community of outcasts created there. She sees the disciples and Jesus as one such community. And I have to agree. I believe that if Jesus was alive today, he'd be hanging out in gay bars, breaking bread with trans people, and calling out our government for lack of funds and support for housing for youth. Jesus, whose mandate to love our neighbor as ourselves has turned into the modern day love is love, and is at the foundations of the theology of our Universalist ancestors. It is because of those roots that we say each Sunday when we gather, whomever you love, you are welcome. There is a meme going around on the internet showing homophobic bigots with signs about, how Jesus believed queer people are all sinners, right next to an image of Jesus in heaven, sitting on a couch, watching RuPaul's Drag Race. And that image feels so right to me, right? Because in queer community, in claiming our names and in the celebration of pride, there is deep joy. And RuPaul's Drag Race is one of those sources of deep joy. There is a real aliveness to finding a community one can belong to, especially in the face of rejection, of being shut out elsewhere. For many Unitarian Universalists, we often ask each other, what brought you to church? And for many of us, the answer is community. Community is a powerful force. It helps us to feel less alone. It creates a space for learning, dialogue, shared understanding, loving challenge, and being known. Especially here, it creates a vehicle and a venue for connection with the sacred. This weekend, these weekends in July throughout Rochester, the month of June in the rest of our country and the world are about celebrating community and identity. Identity as it is affirmed and seen in community. It is a basic human need to be seen and understood, to be known and to know another. When I am in that experience, it feels spiritually grounding to me. Does it feel that way for you too? Let us say yes to life by affirming queer ways of being and believing in our daily lives. Let us say yes to love by holding and uplifting all of those who have felt outcast and lesser than. Let us say yes to truth as we live authentically in community and as we create community where folks can be welcomed as our full selves. And let us name our commitments again and again and again and again to creating a world where all can live safely, happily, and free from oppression. Happy Pride, First Universalist. Amen. Amen. Blessed be the may of the soul. As we celebrate truth, as we celebrate love, as we celebrate life, let us rise in body or in spirit to sing hymn number 6, Just as Long as I Have Breath. Got a wind here. No worries. Rolling with it. Just as long as I must answer yes to life, though with pain I make my way, still with hope I need each day. If they ask what I did wrong, tell them I said yes to life. Just as long as vision lasts, I must answer yes to truth. In my dream and in my heart, always at elusive spark. If they ask what I did wrong, tell them I say yes to truth. Just as long as my heart beats, I must answer yes to love. Disappointment pierce me through, we extinguish our chalice flame this morning, let us read together the words printed in your order of service and on your screen. We extinguish this flame when we keep its light in our hearts, with its message of love and justice, taking it outside these walls to the world we live in, until we are together again. Today we honor that the practice of holding hands at the end of our service may not feel comfortable to everyone, yet you are invited to do so. If folks would like to not hold hands, you can just simply cross your hands over your arms, or cross your arms over your chest, indicating you're not comfortable with holding hands. For folks joining us online, please reach out to the edges of your screen as we gather to create a circle and unending line of those here in this space and beyond. Dear ones, as we go forth this morning, may we say yes to life. May we say yes to love. May we say yes to truth. May we claim our commitments and claim the names of those who came before and those here amongst us now. May we celebrate the pride and the power of LGBTQIA2 spirit people. And may we, each one of us, know that we are loved. May we go forth and bring that love wherever we may go in the days ahead. Amen. Blessed be, and may it show. And as we come to a time to close our service, I'll invite those online and in person to follow the benedictions with the words, Happy Pride! Happy Pride! Please join us in typing these words in the chat together as we enjoy our beautiful, great postlude from our fabulous music. Please be seated.
I don't wanna see my loved ones kicked into the dust no more. Their dreams all turn to rust no more, no more, no more. I don't wanna see my siblings having to give in no more. Their loving called us in no more, no more. No more. And the Stonewall Nation gonna have its liberation. Wait and see. Just wait and see. You can take your intolerance and stick it. We're gonna ride our own ticket. Stonewall Nation is gonna be free. Come on, people, march along. We're all gonna sing our song right now. Right now. And beloved, take me by the hand. We're gonna build a promised land right now. Right now. And our Stonewall Nation gonna have its liberation. Wait and see. Just wait and see. You can take your intolerance and shove it. We're gonna be ourselves and love it. Stonewall Nation is gonna be free. You can take your intolerance and shove it. We're gonna be ourselves and love it. Stonewall Nation is gonna be free.
I just want to thank Genesee Valley Park for getting our coffee hour set up.